Arthur, many thanks. Friends at AEI. First thing y'all need to know is you are here under false pretenses. I just came for a meal. Literally. I had an invitation for this evening, which I decided to accept. As always, we get out the file of standing invitations or opportunities and try to fill in, spend a productive day. And as Calvin Coolidge once said, a man's got to eat somewhere. So I came to AEI. We said yes, and 24 hours later, some, pajama-clad blogger turned it into a major policy address. So maybe that's what you'll get. We'll see. Don't come to town that often. It took me a moment to realize when I saw the all the flags at half staff, and but then it hit me. Hubert Schlafly, the inventor of the teleprompter, died last week, and I know President Obama's grief-stricken at the news. When I innocently said that I would, as I always do, love to drop by AEI, I always learn more than anybody in the audience, and probably will today. Someone quickly followed up and said, so what are you going to talk about? This is, a couple months ago. I said, hell, I don't know. I said, best guess would be education, because that day will be just 3 days after the close of the Indiana General Assembly, in which profound changes, we had proposed, we thought, profound changes in K-12 education in our state. And I knew that I would be here either to report on our failure or a breakthrough. But I thought either one might be it was as timely as anything I could think of at the moment. As it's happened, there were some breakthroughs, at least by our lights, and I'm going to share them with you, and be glad to take your questions on that or any other topic for that matter. The oldest education joke I know has to do with the mother who yells out one morning, Billy, get up for school. I don't want to get up. Billy, get out of bed. It's time for school. I don't want to get up. Third try, no answer. Finally, Billy yells, give me 3 good reasons. His mother says, it's Monday morning, it's the first day of a new semester, and you're the principal. And the reason that came to mind is that, and I'll illustrate this, I hope, before we're done, those who try to make changes in this particular area of American public policy and public life do have to be prepared for some mornings you'd rather not get up and rather not go to school, figuratively speaking. It can be a difficult process, but I want to tell you, after years of working on it, making only partial progress, that many of us in Indiana are very uplifted this week. We believe that we have done some things that will make a profound difference in the lives of children in our state, will make a significant difference in the economic prospects of our state if we can implement them well. And I would like, with your permission, just to do what lazy men do and show you a slideshow in lieu of that a major address that somebody misled you into expecting. And let me see if I can. Maybe I should summon some help to do this. Can I move this? Is it idiot-proof? Sure. Those things that we have just done, they traveled in 4 separate pieces of legislation, each of which I think might fairly have been considered landmark. But they organize themselves more or less into 3 buckets. Teacher quality, freedom to lead, described here as administrative flexibility or responsibility, and options for families and options for children. Teacher quality, the experts of AEI and other places have taught me over the years, is not merely the leading variable in educational outcomes. It is the dominant variable. Some have quantified it actually as 20 times as important as whatever's in second place. Things like class size and so forth are just trivial by comparison to this. And so we worked on this and as our sort of first goal. In Indiana, until now, 99% of our teachers are rated, if they are rated at all. Many of them have not had an annual review or any review in a long time. If they were rated at all, 99% were rated effective. This is interesting because only 1/3 of our students can pass the national standard exams. From now on, there will be annual teacher evaluation. At least a significant portion of it will be based on whether the children learned. Did the children grow? I stress grow. What we will measure and ask every district to measure is improvement. The teacher we seek to honor, protect, and reward the most is exactly that teacher who takes the toughest class, the kids from the most vulnerable homes, the homes where education has not been a focus, and catches them up. Hiring, promotion, salary, everything will now be based on performance and not seniority and not paper credentials. No parent must accept the assignment of their child to an ineffective teacher second year in a row without the option of moving them. We will publish teacher evaluations by school. This last one that may interest you, we moved our state assessment test from the fall to the spring. It'll now be given at the end of the school year, not the beginning of the next school year. You're asking yourselves, why would anybody go send the child to school for a year, take the summer off, come back and take the test? I was baffled by this too until the scales fell from my eyes when someone informed me it's because now they can, under that system, they moved it to the fall so no child's score could ever be associated with a teacher. So you teach the child in 3rd grade. They're assigned along with all kinds of other children to my 4th grade class. If the score's bad, we can't figure out who taught them the previous year. So we moved that back, and we'll now be able to associate student outcomes with teacher assignment. We will now be grading all our schools on an A through F basis. This is not novel to us, but it started in Florida, but I hope will become much more common. There's been a little nomenclature, and don't ask me to tell you what it is. It's education speak, and it was impossible to tell what meant what, but A through F we all understand. We took down bookshelves full of regulations. Teacher certification, we had already changed this by administrative action. Young people or aspiring teachers in Indiana will no longer get a license with an education major. They can minor in education, but they will actually have to study the subjects they hope to teach. So you want to teach math? We got the idea you might want to know some math. And limiting collective bargaining to wages and benefits. Collective bargaining has its rightful place, always will, but to an extent, which I'm going to illustrate in just a second, leadership in Indiana, the principals, the school boards, the superintendents that we are determined to hold accountable for student growth have been hamstrung and prevented from doing that in a myriad of ways, and many of them stemming from the contracts that their school boards have signed with local teachers' unions. I'll show you this in a minute. We needed to create a method to intervene in chronically failing schools. Let me just point out that most of what I've talked about so far, and much of what I will, is strongly supported by the Obama administration. I salute the President, Secretary Duncan. They're right about these things. They have had the courage to, in many cases, irritate some of their allies. This is a great example, and we have 23 schools in Indiana failing now for decades, really, impairing the lives of the young people we've assigned to them, and we now have a system for stepping in and bringing new leadership to bear. And here's another little calendar quirk, but we just moved the school board elections from the spring to the fall. So tests from the fall to the spring, elections from the spring to the fall. What's up with that, you want to know? Well, springs, when we have primaries, nobody votes. It's a lot easier to dominate for a small or for an interest group to dominate the outcome and elect a school board, a friendly school board, in the sparsely attended primary elections. And so now we'll have more of the public at least eligible, or at least on hand to take part in those elections. We'll see if it makes a difference. I said that school boards are often handicapped, or frankly have tied their own hands. And here are just some examples. I don't know if everyone can read them. I've got pages of these, and I asked that, I hope that somebody did this, I asked that they be available outside. Anybody who's interested, I've got several pages of examples of things, real-world provisions that are in Indiana contracts. They range from things as trivial as what the humidity in the school shall be, or what color the teacher's lounge shall be painted. I am not making this up. To more troublesome things like the principal can only hold staff meetings once a month, or can only hold them on Mondays, to still more troublesome things like no teacher will be required to spend more than X hours with students, on to perhaps the most, I think, concerning of all. It's at the bottom of this slide. In many of our schools, no teacher can be observed in the classroom by the principal without a pre-conference and 2 days, 3 days, 5 days notice. That's all over. So this is a summary of that. The second one, if you don't know the term evergreen or status quo clauses, this is a provision that has been in Indiana law for quite a while, and what it means is that when a new contract cannot be agreed to, or there's an impasse, nothing can change without the permission of the union, without the concurrence of the union, which means nothing can change. So the contracts, when finally agreed to, can only get better and sweeter, never move in the other direction. That's now been repealed. And no spending, no contract beyond the 2-year term of the state budget, so that a school board cannot commit itself to spending out into years where it has no idea how much money it may actually have. You might think that these changes would have been welcomed by school boards who have had the table so adversely tilted for a long time. Well, I hope in most cases, but not in all. And we found, as that bill moved near passage, that school boards in some cases were rushing to finalize contracts before the law was effective. We cut a lot of them off at the pass, but here are some examples. Including a 10-year contract in the city of Anderson, which has one of the most dismally failing records that we have. Very, very unfortunate. Now, the third and fourth bills dealt with options for families. But before I talk about them, I want you to know that we had already achieved something in Indiana that we thought was an essential component of a system in which every family of whatever station in life, whatever income level, had the same full range of choice that wealthy people have. And that was that we already had become, in the last couple years, a state of full public choice. And I won't take you through the details unless you're curious, but simply all it means is that any student in Indiana, any family in Indiana, can seek to enroll their child in a neighboring or a different public school district without being charged tuition. And it's happening. I just mentioned Anderson, Indiana. Lots of students from that district this fall were found in neighboring small towns and suburban schools. We have had the delightful, really, sighting of billboards and direct mail pieces from one public school district into the adjacent ones, bragging about test scores, bragging about touting better graduation rates, and welcoming additional students and the dollars that come with them. So we had already a strong measure of choice available to every family. But we had a regime that had attempted to choke the charter school infant in its cradle. We discriminated against charters in many ways, had a growing movement despite the fact that they got their money They got fewer dollars per student at the front end. That they were made to wait 6 months for money that the traditional publics got right away. They had to scratch around for space. We had districts like some of our inner city districts with more than 20 vacant buildings, having shrunk substantially, that for which they had no conceivable use, who refused to even discuss selling them to charter schools. I said, sell them? Hell, give them to them. The taxpayers paid for them once already. They'll now be made available. We will now have a lot more charter schools because we'll have more authorizers than we had before, including, I don't know how common this is or isn't, but including private universities. I hope many of them will choose. This would be a noble project. It would be a great project for some of our many great private universities to give birth to a new educational opportunity somewhere in their vicinity. And then finally, the fourth of these bills will make of Indiana the first state of universal private school choice. It is that is to say, it is available in all places to all citizens. It is means tested. Roughly the lowest income by income, 60% of Hoosier families will be eligible. In the lowest income brackets, 90% of the amount the state spends in a base support for a student. At the top end of that range, 50%. This is enough money to enroll a child in, as far as I know, any elementary or middle school that we're aware of, and a significant part of the cost of a high school. There are a couple parts of this that are worth noting. 3 bullets up from the bottom. As this bill was finally crafted, the public schools will get first shot at every child. That is to say, the family will only be eligible if the child has spent at least 2 semesters in a public school. And you may agree or disagree with this, but I think it was a worthy inclusion into this piece of legislation. In other words, the public school, if the public school delivers and succeeds, no one will seek these to exercise this choice. But neither will we incarcerate any family's kid in a school that they don't believe is working, having tried it at least 1 full year. So this package of 4 bills, we believe, we see as a mutually reinforcing whole. If one or more had failed, we'd have obviously been happy about the ones that made it, but we think it was extremely important that each element of this pass. We believe that the collective bargaining reforms strengthen and protect the teacher quality reforms, for instance, from being undermined in a contract. The accountability provisions are applicable to the charter schools and to any non-government school that accepts a voucher student as well. They will have to use the state test, so parents and potential parents will know whether the school is delivering or not. They will be held to the same standards, which we think is entirely appropriate. Obviously, no non-governmental school has to enroll in this program or take part in the program if they're bothered by any of this. But my sense is almost all will, and enthusiastically so. I'll hazard this guess. I mean, this last element, quite naturally, is going to attract, I suppose, the largest share or a very large share of the attention. But in my own view, it is not likely to be a very large phenomenon in Indiana. I think it will be exercised by a meaningful but not an enormous number of our students. Could be wrong, but that's my guess. Given all the other choices that have been created, given what I believe will be a much improved, much more credible and accountable public school system. But in the lives of those families and those children, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 5% of all our kids, it may mean everything. And it is certainly, from a social justice aspect, the right thing to do, to give the same range of possibilities to every family, regardless of means. And in terms of the benefits of competition, which has been so sorely lacking in this monopoly of public education, as everyone in the room, all the business people know, much of life is at the margins. And even if it's only a few percent of families who take this, as I forecast, I think it'll still have very positive effects in spurring the rest of the system, all of it, the traditionals, the charters, everyone, to do a better job and a better job in delivering for our young people. Let's see. Well, a couple other things before we go to questions. This I thought just might interest you. This was a little bee that got in my bonnet a year or so ago. We have also offered a new choice, really, to the young people of the state, which is that if, as many already do, and many more could, they choose to accelerate their studies and to complete their graduation requirements in 11 years instead of 12, we will give them the money that we were going to spend on an otherwise fun-filled cruise through senior year. And I've talked to a lot of them, and I know whereof I speak. We'll give them that money as long as they invest it in post-secondary education of some kind. Needn't be four-year college. Could be community college. Could be vocational training. Something that will speed them and assist them into a future and help them with the very expensive business of post-secondary education. I only got this idea wandering around our high schools and discovering how common this already is, and then going from there thinking about the money we were spending on that 12th grade and asking kids. We put this on a survey that's given every year to every high school senior and every, I think, 8th grader. We ask them, hypothetically, if they had this choice, would they take it, or would they be interested in it? 77% said they would. So I don't know what the uptake will be, but again, I hope for some kids it'll make a material difference. I need to tell you that Indiana is a state that's in the black, with always has had reserves and never raised taxes to do it through this recent unpleasantness, that we're AAA credit, and we're going to be in structural balance both in the next 2 years, as well as overall we'll be replenishing our reserves back to pre-recession levels. In the context of that, we added spending to K-12 education. Not a lot, but 1.5%, I guess. And part of that will be used to complete the job we started of making full-day kindergarten available to every 5-year-old. So we believe in investments in education and have done as much as we thought we could, consistent with our other duties. But we believe reform has to go right with it. If dollars alone were enough, we all know this problem would have been solved a long time ago. We discovered recently that Indiana is number 1 in America in the share of the state budget committed to K-12 education at 55%. In part, this is because we have squeezed other things so aggressively. In part, it's because we didn't let Medicaid, historically or recently, explode and eat the budget. But it also is because, along with public safety, we have made public education our top priority for the resources that we did have. So I said that, there are days you don't feel like getting up and going to school, and I thought I'd close just on a little sharing about what it's like to try to do these things. Now, maybe you agree with the thrust of the changes that we have been working on in Indiana, but maybe not, but some don't agree at all. And I said in presenting these ideas in the most recent State of the State, I said, advocates of change in education become accustomed to being misrepresented. And then I recited again our commitment to public schools, our reverence for teachers, our determination to do better by them over time, all these important affirmations. And then I showed up as the emperor. I was never this is Star Wars, right? I was never a watcher of these, but I'm told that Darth Vader is really not that bad a guy compared to me. So I got the top billing here. There's a likeness that, I think lacks a little. This one has at least a little more wit to it. But two can play, and let me finish by, here I'll need some help, but I brought two little ads. We also thought it was important because it's easy for these things to be misrepresented. We thought it was important to communicate with the general public as well as the legislator, as well as with opinion leaders and journalists. And just to show you two quick slugs. Thank you, Maestro.
Pam Hewer's students were the highest achieving readers in her district, but she was still first to be let go.
It's definitely deflating, and there's always this sense of kind of fear because you don't know when it's going to happen again.
Thousands of Indiana's most gifted teachers are unfairly laid off or held back simply because they lack seniority. And it's our children who suffer most.
I feel like it's a system that does not work in the best interest of the students.
Tell legislators to pass reforms to pay teachers for their excellence and results, not seniority. Gamble on school lotteries.
I'm just hoping this year is going to be our lucky year,
Every parent hopes to give their child a better future. And Governor Daniels' education reforms give more parents that opportunity. Tell legislators to pass the bills that give every child a chance.
So, happy to your questions. I'll just mention that we had phenomena like students being given homework assignments to write lobbying letters, a lot of notes sent home. Some teachers leaked the written question from our state assessment test, which I wish I had brought so I could read it to you verbatim. But basically it asked the student, if you could move anywhere in the country, where would you go? And if you could move and go to school in a different place, where would you go and why? I think it was meant to be more of a geography question or something. Anyway, it was written by the contractors 2 years ago by the contractors who prepare our standardized tests. It was alleged that we had jimmied up this question to infiltrate into the minds of our students that they ought to have private school choice. So we had to throw out that portion of the test, and it invalidated a lot of results, and it was a bad deal. But anyway, success ultimately was ours. Now we know that the real test for us is dead ahead, and that is to implement effectively these tools in the interest of our kids, in the interest of our state's future. And this caught my eye somewhere. It's a great school, but it wasn't my first choice. From now on, we hope all our schools will be great ones, and everyone will have their first choice. Thank you very much, and I invite your questions. Oh, yes. Thank you for your work. Yeah. Hi, Stephanie.
And a huge fan of yours and Dr. Bennett's work. If you're talking to other governors, education governors, who want to make a dent, achieve breakthroughs policy-wise, what's your advice in terms of strategy?
Well, you're asking somebody who's tried and failed a lot of times, so any advice I'd have for others would largely be learning from mistakes, I guess. Everything, as it should be, must be framed from the standpoint of the child. Too much of education debate I have found is approached by too many people from the standpoint of the system or the adults in the system. And so each reform, I think, must be tested against the obvious but sometimes overlooked criterion of what is best for the child, what is most likely to lead to the child's progress, and then presented that way, always framed that way. It's very important. You cannot, I suppose I made a little light of this, but you cannot often enough affirm your commitment to the public schools. As I said, 90% of Indiana kids are in public schools today. I think even with the new option that's available, it'll always be close to that. I really believe that. I'll be surprised if it's not. And therefore, there's a huge responsibility, and we should all share a commitment to make the public schools better all the time. It's usually, semantically, I think it's probably important to talk about school improvement. Reform means different things to different people. But I don't have a magic answer. If I did, I'd have been here giving this talk years ago. Yeah.
Governor Daniels, Sanjeev Joshua from the Commodity Market Council.
I had a question about your senior year scholarship program.
Right.
And, I'm wondering if vocational training is part of that program. The reason I asked that question is because Germany seems to have made a success of its engineering industry. It's sort of fabled Mittelstand, where a lot of graduates are engineering grads from vocational schools. And I just wonder if Indiana has anything to learn from Germany in that context.
Sanjay, we all do. I think you're quite right. The answer is yes. Very explicitly, this is for any post-secondary education. I expect and hope that a lot of it will be used for vocational training or at other than four-year schools. Our community college in Indiana is growing and developing at lightning speed. It's more than doubled in the last few years, and I think it also will probably be the place at which these scholarships are applied. Yeah.
Joy Pullman, I work here at AI, but in a month my family is moving to Fort Wayne, where I'll be the managing editor. So I have a question for you, and I hope you don't take it as hostile as it may sound, because I appreciate a lot of your work. But what the parent trigger in Indiana? Parent
trigger? That's a friendly question. We got it. I believe we got it. I don't think it was a last-minute casualty. And what the question asks about is the opportunity for parents to petition. That's the way we approached it. By petition of 51% of the parents, a school can be converted from a traditional to charter form, and that was also part of our package. And yeah, that one hasn't reached me yet, and I'll if it picked up encumbrances that made it less direct than we wanted, I'll be disappointed by that. But it's an important principle, and we argued for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Arthur Rothkopf, congratulations, Governor, on your achievements.
Yes, sir.
You didn't mention at all the question of teacher tenure, how long it takes to get tenure, and there are some states that are considering eliminating it for new teachers. What are your thoughts on that?
We agree, and we did that. Tenure in the new system will now be a function of ratings of effective or highly effective. And back-to-back ratings, for instance, for a brand new teacher, will give that teacher protection in the event of layoffs or shrinkage. The bill does, Arthur, provide to incumbent teachers a starting position. But they can only keep it by earning, starting right away, effective or highly effective ratings and maintaining them. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mara Eliason from National Public Radio. I don't want to be a party pooper, but I do want to change the subject.
Let's have a parental referendum right. Yeah.
To 2012, without telling us what you're going to do, could you explain why it's not too late for someone to get in at this point who's not a celebrity or a billionaire? Why it wouldn't be too late?
As the man said, when I considers my opportunities, I marvels at my self-restraint. Mara, I don't know the answer to that. I think even people far more sage than I about our political and presidential process are very surprised that on May the 4th it's not already far too late. But for whatever reason, it's not. I consider that from the standpoint of the public a blessing. We're not, I guess, unless you're unless you're a political professional or running a bed and breakfast in New Hampshire, it's a darn good thing that will have a campaign measured in months and not a nomination campaign measured in months and not years. I'm not sure exactly what gave rise to it. I've said before, and quite honestly, the idea of my becoming one of the aspirants is something that I wasn't prepared to think about while we were working on this and a number of other things. And I really thought, following the lines of your question, that by April 29th, the statutory end of our session, which could have been extended, we had a big dust-up early and a walkout and so forth, and it might have been necessary to extend the session, and I would have done it, if necessary, to see that these bills got voted on. I really thought that it might become too late somewhere along the line. If it had, that would have been that. But for whatever reason, it appears not to be, and again, I think it's a happy surprise.
Hi, Governor. Michael Willey, recent Georgetown Public Policy Institute graduate.
Michael?
President Obama and Secretary Duncan have been effective advocates at getting states to lift the cap on charter schools and also improve a few teacher quality aspects. But they've also increased the amount of money spent at the federal level. The stimulus bill doubled the size of the Department of Education, and last August they bailed out the states, and also opposed a highly effective voucher bill here in Washington, D.C. Could you speak a little bit about what a president in 2013 might do when it comes to education reform at the federal level?
Okay, Michael. I'll start with something I already said. I really do want to salute and commend, and I've done it over and over, the President, Secretary Duncan, for a lot of leadership in this area. And that Secretary Duncan came to Indianapolis. He and I sat on the stage of a spectacularly promising charter school in one of the toughest parts of town, and took questions from the students and others. And really, it was a great, I thought, a great afternoon. We don't agree on everything. They wouldn't go as far as we did, and I understand that. And we have an honest disagreement. With regard to the Department of Education itself, there's a lot more of it than we need. There is a federal role. I probably have a much more modest view of that. I do than some other folks. I believe in national standards. I believe we have to all be. We can all choose our best way to get there. I sometimes say, high school track team, the coach may coach the Fosbury flop, the Valerie Brumel roll, or the old scissors kick, but we all ought to be jumping at the same bar. And you know the old line about how hard it was to get there. You'll never have national standards because Republicans don't like national and Democrats don't like standards. But the department led a process, and in fairness to them, credit to them, they organized a process whereby the states came together or coming together, and I think that's a positive thing. So in terms of setting high aspirations, measurement, sharing of what works, there is some role there. You're right. There's been an incredible explosion of spending. We don't need all of that. However, I would say I did not object, at least up to some point, the idea of a one-time attempt, the so-called race to the top program, in which we were not successful competitor, by the way, but the idea one time to try to jar the system into motion, to stick this enormous carrot out there and try to get states to move towards some of these reforms. I thought that was not that bad an idea, but it's like the rest of the federal budget. It's ballooned up so much in the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of that could be taken right back down and I think without doing injury at all to education or education change.
Michael Warren from the Weekly Standard. I want to know if you could expand on your comments from, I guess it was Monday, on Fox and Friends. You said, in regard to Osama bin Laden's capture, you said the struggle's not over and it won't be for long. And I just wonder if you could expand your comments with regard to that and the war in Afghanistan and some of our terror-related policies.
What did I say?
You said the struggle's not over and it won't be for long. Struggle against Al-Qaeda.
Well, I don't think that's all that deep a thought, really. I don't know how much deeper I can go for you. No, I as best I recall, it was a subject on everybody's mind, and I simply affirm what I think common sense tells you, that this was a very significant achievement, tremendously powerful from a symbolic standpoint. Operationally, I assume of some importance too, wouldn't know. But with everyone else, I think we all accept that it's just one real important moment in what will be a continuing conflict, a continuing responsibility of the government. But well done, well handled, and let's just hope it presages more such successes.
Peter McPherson, Association of Public Land Grant Universities. I think this voucher for the senior in high school is very exciting. Everybody's known for a long time that was a pretty unproductive year, and speak
for yourself, Peter. I mean,
yes, right. That's true, Governor. But it's been, and we've had these courses where students could go off to college and sort of, but it's never really worked. A voucher was excellent. I wonder what were the political dynamics. For example, were the community colleges supportive?
Yes, I don't remember them being extremely active, but as they noticed this idea and heard about it, I think they were. Another thing, I confess that I didn't realize, that I wouldn't have realized, but for the constant travel I do through the state, the time I spend in schools, I wouldn't have realized how many young people might get themselves in this position. Another thing I didn't realize till the last year or two is how much evidence there is, scholarly and otherwise, that it's a very good idea to move people through more quickly, that there's nothing magic about 18 versus 17 getting to college. There's nothing magic about 22 versus 21 or 20 getting through, that in fact, many people that I've read and listened to make a very strong case that at least that for many young people, the best thing they can do, and they're fully ready for it, maybe not everybody, but for many, is to move through quickly and get on into productive life. And this idea is consistent, I guess, with that mode of thought too. Yeah.
Howdy, Governor. Again, thank you for the event this morning at GW. It was great. I just didn't get to ask my question at that event.
Well, I'm sorry, buddy. You blew it. No, go ahead.
All right, but anyways, I've been to. I just read earlier that you're going to lower the corporate tax rate to 6.5% in
That's correct.
the state of Indiana. Would you consider lowering even further, largely because your state's in the black still and Illinois is going bankrupt, which they will go bankrupt because they just jacked up their taxes and everyone's get the hell out of there. So, but would you consider it lowered to say around 4%, because then more businesses could come in?
Christopher, from the beginning of our service, our central objective has been not to balance budgets, not even to improve education as an endpoint. All these things are, as we see them, are means toward an end, and that is to make of our state the most promising place in the world for investment and for people to start businesses and grow businesses and perhaps relocate businesses. So we have been working relentlessly for 6.5 years, and I could bore you to death with maps that show that Indiana has now come right to the top of everyone's list of a very good place to do business and to hire people and have a chance to get your money back. And so yes, we were very interested in lowering the corporate rate when we could do this consistent with our fiscal situation. You should know that in an all-in calculation, Indiana business taxes are about the third lowest in America now, best we can tell. So we've done a whole lot before we got to this point. But our corporate rate, viewed in isolation, stuck out a little bit. And so we were looking for a way to bring it down as well. We got the lowest property taxes in America, one of the lowest, flattest income taxes in America. We were interested in doing this. You'd be interested to know this is something that I think has national parallels. We did this. We found this was a revenue neutral, as they say in this town, endeavor. And we discovered, it's amazing what you discover if you just spend enough time out talking to people. I was out in some place, and a guy came up to me and said a year ago, and he said, I do this for a living, but why does Indiana forgive the exempt from taxation the interest on other states' bonds? He says, we're the only state in America that does this. So every state makes their own bonds tax-free, or their own local government bond. He said, we do that. He said, I'm happy to help people cut their taxes doing that. Why do we do that? And I got thinking, why do we do that? For one thing, why do we want to subsidize the Californians and the New Yorkers and all those people? So anyway, we closed that preference. And that freed up enough money to drop the corporate rate for every business that uses the corporate tax in Indiana. So we think that's pretty good trade from the standpoint of our end objective, which is to be a state of enterprise and a state of hope and opportunity. Yes, ma'am. It's an old trick. If you call on the person farthest from the microphone, you wind up answering fewer questions.
Brilliant. Governor Daniels, thank you so much for your remarks. As a fellow graduate of your high school...
Really?
Yes, really.
Did it take you 12 years?
I'm afraid it did, but one of them was not spent at North Central.
Oh, okay.
I would be curious to know, North Central has one of the best vocational training programs in the J. Everett Career Center. And given that, for whatever reason, post-secondary education is probably not always going to be a possibility or a real perspective for a lot of people, I'm wondering if you have any policies or if your education platform that you have so recently successfully passed has any provision for increased vocational training for high school students so that when they graduate, they are able to enter as productive members of the workforce.
I think the answer is yes. Our Department of Education is working on this and has talked a lot about it. We've rationalized. We had a strange arrangement which we just rationalized and brought vocational ed under the department where it should always have been, and so it can be better integrated with standard academic offerings. But it's a very important point. As hard as we are working to raise Indiana's very low percentage of adults with a post-secondary degree, we do recognize that 4 years of college is not necessarily the right idea for everybody, and that more productive and more remunerative lives may be available to a lot of our young people if they master an important and scarce skill, as opposed to simply pursuing, liberal arts education as we've known it.
One more, Governor?
One more. How about the gentleman back there?
Hi, my name is Mark Nadell. The question of what you think the role of federal or state government is in R&D for education. Many speakers at AEI have spoken about how embarrassingly low the percentage of dollars have been invested in R&D for education over the past. Do you think that states, since you said 90% of, you're hoping 90% of Indiana residents will go to Indiana schools, that Indiana will invest in R&D? Or do you think the federal government should play a larger role?
Oh, Mark, that's a good question. I mean, I did say I thought there was a smaller but an important, a meaningful role for the federal government. I think I talked about, sharing, learning about what works, and I guess that's a form of R&D. So I could see that being important. I will never stop learning about learning. I know I won't, but I think even the experts won't. I guess I would say that our shortcomings in education in Indiana and other places I've looked at, just as they don't trace to a shortage of dollars, not that more dollars aren't valuable when they're available, I don't think they trace to a shortage of knowledge about what works. We've known certain things at least that work for a long time. We've known, apparently for a long time, longer than I've known, that teacher quality is as important as it is. We've known that charter schools work. We've known that more competition is helpful. And I'm for continuing to research those things at every level. But I'll just speak for our 2.2% of America. We think we know enough to make big improvements that our kids have long deserved, and we're going to spend the next few years with the new toolbox we've created building the best school system in America, and our focus is going to be on making it happen. Thank you all very much.